Chapter 11, the final chapter of Tractate Nedarim, finishes some final laws on vows and their nullification. The first mention says the vows that a husband or father can nullify are vows of affliction, for instance a vow against bathing or against adorning herself. Others say that doesn't constitute a vow of affliction. A vow of affliction would be a vow against all the produce in the world, and would not include a vow against produce from a single country or shopkeeper, for instance. However, if the shopkeeper is the only person she can get the produce from, that is a vow he can nullify. The Gemara says a husband can also nullify vows that affect his relationship with his wife, along with vows of affliction. The difference is that nullifying vows of affliction is permanent, while nullifying vows involving the relationship, the nullification only lasts as long as the marriage does. However, a different source seems to say that even vows of the relationship, if nullified, they're nullified permanently, so it says actually yes, that is the case. However, the vows in the relationship can be permanently nullified to the current husband, but not to her future husbands, unlike vows of affliction, which can be permanently nullified for everybody. It explains the debate on vows against bathing. The opinions that say this is a vow of affliction say she's vowed against the benefit of bathing, which means she can't bathe, and also will now cause physical issues since she can't. The opinion that says this is not a vow of affliction says that this is a reference to not bathing for one day, and there's no concern of physical issues for not bathing for one day. Some say it's that this opinion would say that she made a vow and an oath combined to not bathe, and explains that this could work with the wording, as sometimes an oath is referred to as a vow. A different source, that the latter opinion, that not bathing for a period isn't a serious affliction, would actually say that not doing laundry is a severe affliction, and I cite sources. There's further discussion on these points. It also debates according to this latter opinion that those vows aren't vows of affliction. However, they could be a vow affecting the relationship between husband and wife, which can be nullified. It's debated if this is the case. It further discusses particular vows that constitute ones which would affect the relationship between husband and wife. These are discussed further. There are additional specific cases brought. It says if a woman vows against eating 2 loaves, one of which, if not eaten, will cause her to deprive herself, and the other one will not, there's debate if the husband can nullify just the vow against the first loaf, or even both of them. It also discusses the nullification of vows on her taking a Nazirite vow. This is further discussed. New Mishnah: if a woman vowed against benefiting from the property of other people, her husband can't nullify this vow, although if she's poor, she can still benefit from the field charity obligations. If a person vowed against letting Levium or Kohanim benefiting from him, they can still take the tithes from him against his will. If he vowed against specific Kohanim or Levium from benefiting from him, he can still give it to others. The Gemara debates in the first vow if the husband is included in her vow against benefiting from people, from several opinions. This is further discussed, and it also is debated if such a poor woman, in addition to the field charities, can benefit from the poor man's tithe, which is Meiser Ani. It's debated along with the remaining points. It's also questioned as to how the Kohanim and Levium can eat the tithes that they took from somebody that vowed against giving the tithes to them. Some say that the tithes are considered ownerless to everybody, as he can't use them, so therefore the Kohanim could just now take them. New Mishnah: if a woman vows against producing things for her father, brother, or brother-in-law, the husband can't nullify them, as they don't affect the relationship. If the wife vows against producing things for her husband, this is automatically void, as she is obligated to help her husband, although some say he should still nullify the vow in case she helps him more than her required minimum, which would be in violation of this vow. Others say he should nullify the vow, as if they divorce, the vow will take effect, and they won't be able to remarry. The Gemara says some hold like this last opinion, and it debates based off this if you can vow against an entity that doesn't yet exist based on comparison to similar cases. It's debated further. Some say the issue is with such vows against prohibition. They have a stricter status and cannot be permitted, and this prohibits the husband from taking the produce as is. There's also the issue of them divorcing and being unable to marry. New Mishnah: if the husband mixed up the vow nullification, meaning if the wife took it and he thought his daughter took it, or vice versa, or she took a Nazirite vow and he thought she took a vow to bring an offering, or vice versa, or she took a vow against grapes and he thought it was against figs, or vice versa, he needs to redo the vow nullification. The Gemara discusses sources of these points. It additionally states, as a general rule for the retraction of speech, a person can legally retract a statement if he does so within the period of time it would take to speak a short phrase. This applies basically by all laws. The only exceptions that you can't retract the statements, even if immediately after, are if somebody blasphemes, or if they worship idols, or betroths, or divorces a wife. New Mishnah: if a woman vows against figs and grapes, if the husband certifies the part on figs, both are certified. If he nullifies the part on figs, it only is nullified if he also nullifies grapes. If the woman vowed against tasting grapes and against tasting figs, that's considered to be two separate vows. The Gemara cites sources. These are discussed further. New Mishnah. Somebody didn't nullify his wife's vows on the day she took it, and later found out that he was allowed to nullify her vows. He can nullify it on the day that he found that he was allowed to. If he knew that, but he didn't realize she had taken the vow, it's debated if he can nullify it. The Gemara cites some related disputes on lacking information in regards to certain prohibitions. New Mishnah. If somebody vows against benefiting from his son-in-law, he's allowed to give his daughter money as a gift, as long as her husband has no rights to it, and it includes whatever she picks up and puts in her mouth. The Gemara debates by these laws if the hand of a woman is legally considered to be the same as the hand of her husband from several sources, including by the laws of an Erev. No Mishnah. If a widowed or divorced woman takes a vow, such as a Nazirite vow, if she remarries right after, even within 30 days, her new husband cannot annul the vow. If a married woman took a Nazirite vow to last for 30 days, and her husband nullifies it and then dies or divorces her, the vow is still nullified after. If she took the vow, divorced on the same day, and then immediately remarried, he cannot nullify the vow. Generally, if she was under her own jurisdiction with the vow for any period of time, he can no longer nullify it. The Gemara cites sources and discusses these points. New Mishnah. There are 9 possible young women whose vows cannot be nullified. If she's an orphan grown woman, if an orphan took the vow as a young woman and then became an adult, if she's an orphan who took a vow as a young woman and still is a young woman, if she took her vow as an adult and her father died, if she took the vow as a young woman, became an adult, and then her father died, if she took the vow as a young woman and her father died, if she took the vow as a young woman, her father died, and then she became an adult, if she took the vow as an adult and her father is alive, and if she took the vow as a young woman, became an adult, and her father is still alive. Some say in the event that a father betrothed his minor daughter to somebody to be married later, and she's widowed or divorced during that period, returning to the father, he can no longer annul her vows. The Gemara discusses the author of this. New Mishnah. If a woman vowed against having benefit from her father or father-in-law, if she prepares anything for her husband, or vowed against benefiting from her husband, if she prepares anything for her father or father-in-law, the husband can nullify this vow. The Gemara discusses additional such vows that the husband can nullify for his wife. There are some particular instances they're discussed further. New Mishnah. Originally, it was instituted that 3 types of women would automatically be divorced and collect their marriage contracts. The wife of a Kohen who says she is impure to him, meaning that she was violated by somebody else, a woman who claims her husband is impotent, or a woman who vows against having intimacy with any other Jewish person. It was later changed to make it so that if a woman wanted to remarry, they couldn't just do one of these things. So the first case requires proof, the second must request her divorce, and the third just has her vow annulled in that she can still be with him, but no other Jewish person besides for him. The Gemara debates if a woman who is married to a Kohen who claims she was violated, whether or not she's still allowed to eat teruma. There's an issue of it casting doubt on the legitimacy of her children, so some say it's only forbidden if she becomes widowed. It also debates if she was violated, whether she received her marriage contract, as she can no longer be with her Kohen husband, but she could legally remain with him if he was anyone but a Kohen. It cites similar discussions and says she does receive her marriage contract. It also debates if a woman claims to her husband that he had divorced her, whether there's legitimacy to this claim. It's largely based on if we think a person would be brazen enough to claim such a thing lying. It tries to bring a proof from the case of our Mishnah, where a woman claims of her husband's physical impotence, but that's not a valid proof, as a husband could be unaware of that. Well, he would definitely be aware if he had divorced her, so we would actually believe a woman who claims she was divorced. It says a particular incident of a woman who acted as if she had just cohabited, but her husband told her that they hadn't, so she said it might have accidentally been with a non-Jewish merchant there, so it was brought to court, and it was ruled that they could stay married, as she could have been lying to try and get divorced to marry somebody else. It says some similar cases. There was also a case where an adulterer went into a woman's house and the husband walked in, so the adulterer hid and saw a snake bite into a vegetable, and then the husband went to eat the vegetable, so the adulterer jumped out and stopped the husband from eating it, saving his life. It was brought to court and ruled that the adulterer hadn't actually cohabited with the woman, as then he would have just let the husband die. This is based off the verse, for they have committed adultery and blood is on their hands. This is brought to remove the presumption that they could have actually been adulterous, and the adulterer saved the husband's life anyways. And that's the end of chapter 11 and the entire Tractate Nedarim.